Welcome back to our discussion of HTML forms. This time we're going to take a look at a complex form example. So here we are with the code on the right and the result on the left. I want to take a look at our credit right away here. It's on GitHub, actually, the MDN GitHub learning area. You can search for that. Here, I'm going to follow this link. And I've added this as a trusted link. I'll show you that in a minute, and that's why I went right to it. But this is HTML form structure is the example, and here's also an example of open source project in action. So all of these form examples, and you can see if you need, if I was a HTML front end page designer, I would have this bookmarked for sure, because a lot of your work is going to be HTML forms. So this is very thorough examples of all HTML forms examples, how to style them, how to validate them, and we'll take a look at a few more of these projects. But also the open source area here. So these are examples of contributors and their commit messages. So you could join this, for example, this project. Suppose you come up with a good idea to add to the payment form example that we see right in front of us. You can pull request. Perhaps they'll accept it, and if your pull request is accepted, then you can have a resume entry that you worked on the MDN HTML examples. So let's get back to the example before us, and I'm not going to go over all of this because a lot of this we've already seen. Just things that are different and highlighted. So within this example, you're going to see common HTML elements that are involved in forms: headers, paragraph, unordered list, field sets, legend elements. A lot of those that we've gone over, but I don't think we've ever seen a header 1 incorporated into a form. And notice it here. So this is a multi-part form. It actually has multiple sections, and here I want to call out this section element. Here is something new that we haven't seen before. It has no appearance element on the page, but it has a semantic meaning, a major section of the form, and it helps find the sections of the form if you're reading the code, but it also helps identify it semantically, and we'll take a look at that in a second. So notice these section elements are often followed by header 2s or subsection headers, like header 3s, for example, as you develop your page in subsections. So let's take a look at this W3 Schools link to see an example. So I haven't added that to a trusted domain, so it takes a little bit. So here's a section example here, and here is a typical web page with a nav bar and some other navigation aids, and see what a section does. It's a great way to call out from the header links to the subsections. So it doesn't, again, have a visual aspect to it, but it definitely has a navigational aid that identifies for the reader of the HTML that these are logically grouped areas. Here's an example of radio buttons inside of field sets. We just went over that, but to review, the radio buttons are organized in an unordered list as list items. Then there's labels, of course, and the ID for all of them. It has to be unique, but the element that gets sent back to the server is the same name, basically key value pair. The name of this is title, and then have one of these settings according to the value actually that is stored here. So this is the code that would get sent back to the server when this automated submit button was hit. We've gone over the abbreviation tag, but I want to point out its use here. This is especially important for screen readers. These are marking required fields. So the visual reader can read that up here, but for a screen reader, this would be able to read this star as an abbreviation of required. These types of email and password, this would obscure the entry. But they also provide hooks for local error correction, and we're going to see form validation next. The credit card information is created as a drop-down, or at least that's what they're commonly called. Very, very similar logically to the radio buttons, because it's a mutually exclusive list where you see this, but the select tag here surrounds these. That's what forms the drop-down list, and then all the options you want to put into here in the HTML. And this would be the value that gets sent back to the server, given the card selection here. Here we see the input type date, enabling a calendar. And then I added this to the example. The input ID is hidden, with the type is hidden. So this is an element that's not visible to the user. The value of it is that you can, for example, JavaScript could be updating these input hidden values with information that it's gathering when it interacts with the user on the page. So then you can embed information that the server would get that was unique information for this submission. In fact, you could encode this on the server side. If this web page was generated dynamically, this hidden type could be generated on the server side. So when the submit button was hit, it could tie it to the exact page that was served up. So a very important type, the hidden type.